For all verified facts, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome. We all spend a lot of time on conference calls and video calls, and more importantly or specifically, Zoom calls. So what is Zoom all about? And there is a lot of questions, concerns, and of course, praise for this company, which has brought us all together in the times of COVID-19. So let's try and understand what Zoom is, what it is doing, and more importantly, what it will be doing to make your and my life simpler as we continue to communicate more remotely than ever before. To discuss this, I'm joined by Raje, the India head for Zoom Communications. Samir's earlier worked with West Corporation, Microsoft, and Cisco as well. So he comes from a technology background. So Samir, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Govind. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Right. So Samir, tell us about Zoom. How many users does Zoom have? Can you tell us what kind of penetration it's had in India? What is the kind of usage that you're seeing between types of either categories or people or even institutions?
Well, if I have to talk about the number of users on Zoom platform, it's in millions, and I'm speaking about only the India-based users. It's a humongous numbers. To come to the fact that pre-COVID time, the situation was slightly different. When I say that, we could easily categorize customers or users or people, consumers, in two different categories. First were the ones who could adopt technology very fast. They were the ones who were on a collaboration platform. They were open to embracing some technologies, etc. And there were this other set of users who were kind of a bit traditional, I would say, who would have a little bit of roadblock or mental block stating that, hey, should I use collaboration technologies? Would my employees be productive while working from home, and so on and so forth? I mean, all those questions which pop up in general mind, right? However, during the COVID situation, what happened is we have seen acceleration on both the fronts. In the first lot of your consumers which had embraced collaboration tools earlier as well, they have adopted even more, right? So earlier probably it was restricted to certain amount of usage, etc. Now they are using it even more and deeper and wider usage across customer meetings, internal meetings, and so on and so forth. Whereas the second set of users who initially had some inhibitions, their entire mindset has transformed. There is a complete digital transformation which has got accelerated. So these folks suddenly have started realizing that there is no option but to adopt these technologies. And having adopted these technologies, now they are seeing the benefit of it, be it productivity, be it reduction in costs of travel, or be it even infrastructure costs. So right. There is an increment in both the sides which we are seeing.
Right. Any numbers you can share at all, Samir, on how it has grown or penetrated? Because I'm sure a lot of people are revenue paying customers in India too, because they are using your webinar feature and so on, which costs money. So any sense, even in percentage terms?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's not that India has been growing only in the freemium users, as we call it, who are the free users. So anybody wanting to do meetings more than 40 minutes, and for more than 2 participants need to subscribe to our license. And there has been a tremendous growth. We have seen around 4 to 5% increase in our, growth of our paying customers. Absolutely. Premium users, obviously, again, are quite significantly higher. That growth, and today we have friends, families, everybody using Zoom, right? So obviously that growth is much higher. That's more than 60-70%. So those numbers are very high.
And India is a percentage of global revenue at this point, roughly?
Well, all I can say is that suddenly we've become the second largest market after the US, and that helps me build a case within my HQ, and my job has become much more simpler because earlier and to a great extent, Zoom has always been a company which is focused on the US markets. This year onwards, we've brought in a focus on the international markets, and India has become the second largest market outside the US. So
in revenue terms as well,
in all the terms.
That's interesting. Okay, so let's come to some of the concerns, and you're quite familiar with them. And let me start with the April 16th advisory from the Government of India under the Cyber Coordination Center, which in turn comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs, which said that this platform should not be used by government officials for official purposes, and it cited several security concerns. And part of it may be to do with maybe what the perception of the ownership of the company was, so that's not stated here. But fundamentally, that the security systems were weak. So where does Zoom stand on this today?
So If we go into that particular advisory itself, the SICOT advisory, there are two facts to it. The first fact is that the SICOT advisory is based on the CERT advisories, CERT in advisories, and CERT in is the actual governing body or certifying body which states, or that is the normal industry standard for certain to release certain advisories, which is the best practices or which is regarding safety or advisories to the larger general public. Now, if you look at the SICOT advisory, that itself is based on certain advisories, which are two in particular, which are mentioned in that SICOT advisory. Yeah. However, if you look at those certain advisories, nowhere has certain mentioned that Zoom is unsafe to be used as a platform. At best, they are just simple advisories advising caution in terms of what bugs were found, or there were some issues on the platform and they have been fixed with versions of Zoom 4.8, 4.9, etc. Now, whatever the misunderstanding or miscommunication is there, or wherever it stems from, we have been in communication with SICOT as well, and they have been very helpful, very receptive, and open to conversation. They agree that yes, there were certain misinformation which was there in the market, due to which they had to release this advisory. But today they are
right.
We are confident that they will release or work towards revising the advisory.
Right. So some of that misinformation, as you mentioned, is to do with the ownership of the company. Now, we know that the company is headquartered in the US, incorporated in Delaware, but the owner or the founder of the company is of Chinese extraction, which perhaps leads, particularly in these times, to for people to feel a little concerned. Perhaps this was also exacerbated by the fact that at one point there was concern that data was being routed to China. And it was not evident to everyone that data was being routed to China. So two parts of the question. So one is, can you tell us about the ownership and the status on that? And secondly, where is the data sitting today, and how is Zoom managing its data as well as its data overload?
Absolutely, Govind, and I think your question is spot on, and we do not shy away from what the facts are, and we put the facts out there in the open. The first and foremost, let's talk about Eric, who is our founder. Eric is Yuan. It's a true story of an individual, of an immigrant going to US, establishing himself, and starting off an organization of his own. His struggle in his early life is very similar to probably any individual going to US for work-related. Based on work-related visa. People don't know that US rejected Eric's visa probably 8 times. He struggled, he went there, and then we continued to work with WebEx, and that's where I met Eric, because I'm also an old WebExian. We used to all work under the great gentleman, Mr. Subra Iyer, who is still our advisor on Zoom. So we started off from there, and continued to work when WebEx got acquired with Cisco as senior, vice president of engineering, and then he had the idea of starting his firm. And this actually was conceptualized in his mind when he used to travel to meet his girlfriend at that time back in China, 20 years back, right? More than 20, 30 years back, whatever the time was. And that's when he had conceptualized that he wanted to start a firm of his own. And that's the whole idea. I think I would invite everybody to read Eric's blog, Eric's story, which is a real struggle, how he came up during his life. And we take pride in that. There's no hiding that fact. And Eric has been an American citizen for since 2006 or 7 or something like that. Yeah, 2007. So that's the fact. The second aspect is, getting listed on NASDAQ is not just something that anybody can do. When you're listed on NASDAQ, when you're operating in Europe, you need to follow certain rules, which are GDPR compliance, related to Sarbanes Oxley and US and so on and so forth. So there are lots of rules we need to follow. It's not just that we can share data with anybody and everybody. Yes, it is right to say that there was an occasion where our data was found going to China. Now everybody does mistakes, and again, we don't shy away from that. We are probably one of the companies which is honest enough in coming forward and saying that yes, we did mistakes. This was one of the mistakes when we were trying to scale up our servers. Right, nobody had anticipated this kind of a growth, and we had to grow fast. We had to increase our capacity fast. Human errors happen, and this was one of the error which happened. Today we have around close to about 19 data centers across the world, of which one of them is in China. We have 2 data centers in India. One is in Mumbai, one is in Hyderabad. The China data center, unfortunately, while scaling up, we missed out on geofencing. Now, China data center typically is for the people or the customers who are global multinational based in China, right? Like if you're an American company and operating out of China, your data needs to go to the China server. It is for them. It is always geo-fenced. That is the reason why it was there. But unfortunately, we missed for a short duration of time. It was brought to our notice. We fixed it. We went beyond the call of duty. What we did is when this was flagged off, we brought in an industry first feature where you could actually route your controlling of the data. You could deselect certain data centers that you don't want. And not only that, but when you're connected to Zoom network, if you click on the information icon on the left top screen, you will get an information which data centers you are connected on. So that's the actual fact. We do not share data. We have a specific article, not only article, but detailed terms and conditions of when or how we share or how we respond to government risk requests, under what circumstances, under legal circumstances that we are operating in any country where government comes up and says that, hey, this is a legal requirement and you need to tell us what's happening in this meeting. And we don't share that. However, when there are certain issues, like let's say there is an abuse or there is some misappropriate behavior which happens in the meeting, and it does happen, if it gets reported, in those cases we are forced to share certain details, and those are also governed by the global rules and regulations. It's just not that, it is very clearly articulated on our website, and it is for the privacy and the protection of the user itself.
And has this happened in India where you've had requests, and like many other social platforms get requests and they share data?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's we as we operate in India, we have to work very closely with the law enforcement agencies, and if there is any user reported on our platform, we have to give the details such as location, IP address that has been logged in by that particular abuser or the miscreant. We have to share with the law enforcement agent. That's all we have. We don't retain your data. We don't store your data. So we don't have anything, but except for the calling details.
Right. So you're saying you have shared information and data with Indian law enforcement as and when they've asked for it?
Not the data, is the user credentials, what has come in. So like, for example, the IP address, which will help them trace back the location of the person where he is. It's very similar to the telecom roles. If you get a threat on your telephone and somebody's threatening you, the telecom service provider has to give the calling details, etc., to the government. So it's the exactly same thing in the IT world as well.
Right. And do you, the one other concern in a way, so you're also saying that nothing is resident unless I'm specifically recording something, and all our conversation, maybe like the one we're having right now, will die the moment the conversation gets over, except for our individual login data.
Absolutely right. So what the data we have is your login credentials, that is if you've created, your billing details if you've created, as to where your bills are being supplied to, your email address, your telephone number if you have shared, and your name and second name. That's all we have. None of the meeting data ever gets recorded unless explicitly you have put in a request. You have the right to disable it. And if you choose to record it, you have two options. First is if you choose to record it on your computer, it resides on your computer itself. It doesn't reside on our cloud anywhere. So if this meeting is over tomorrow, anybody wants to come and say that what happened in this meeting, well, we don't have access to it. We don't have any information on it.
Right. And is there any other software running, for instance, like facial recognition and so on, which is maybe helping you understand and build the product out in a more friendly way? Or
no, absolutely not. So we don't have those kind of artificial intelligence capabilities built into the platform to identify what's happening into that. And anyways, the data from your PC, from your client, if you're joining in from a Zoom client to my Zoom client, is all encrypted. So it's not going to.
Right. So, and finally, can you tell us what is the technical definition of the encryption level that is in play when there are conversations like for this one, for example, this one?
Well, if you're using a Zoom client on your PC or your laptop or your phone, right? So that is where the meetings are encrypted completely. However, what needs to be understood is that Zoom is a collaboration platform, right? So we need to bring in other formats of collaboration as well, like be it PSTN audio conferencing or high definition video conferencing platform from some other service providers. That's where the data or the meeting content from our cloud to that particular end device may or may not, or the format of encryption might change. So that's what happens. If you're recording it, there is an additional plugin which comes in where the encryption might change. But we are again launching an end-to-end encryption into this, where there will be certain reduction in other features and functionalities. But that end-to-end encryption would mean that everything will be completely entirely encrypted. There will be no probably you won't even able to bring another format of communication into our platform.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that we are doing right now. But
Right.
let me put it on record that the level of encryption available right now on our platform is we are the only ones to provide 256-bit GCM encryption. No other platform provides you with that.
Right. And actually, that was the term I was looking for. Okay. So last question, Samir. So you said you've been a Webexian and so has your founder. So tell us, between Zoom and other platforms, why Zoom?
Oh, well, absolutely. First and foremost, it's the organization, right? So our first concept is to care for the customers. That's point number one, right? And it reflects in every individual that deals and engages with any customer, not only from selling perspective, but even from product feature functionalities perspective. The whole product is based on that. So if you click on Zoom link, you will be absolutely sure that you will have a meeting without disruption. Now your bandwidth may suffer, you will still have video meeting which is seamless. That is why Zoom. The video, or let me put it this way, Zoom makes your meetings even better than in-person meetings, right? So that's the beauty of it. And in India, the strength is that Zoom is able to function and deliver even at a very high packet loss, up to 40-45%. But that's the power of Zoom.
Right, and that's useful to know. Samir, it was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for sharing all the details about why we or many of us should be using Zoom and why it's safe as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Govind. It was a pleasure talking to you.